What's up, everyone? I hope you're having an amazing day. I've been thinking a lot about conversations I've had recently, and I thought it might be good to reflect on what it means to listen. I find myself kind of failing to do that regularly, and I'm sure that, yeah, you probably would relate as well. It can be hard to pay attention to what somebody else is saying, and not to kind of talk ahead of them, kind of know what you're going to say before they speak, not to think of a fun story before they say anything. Sometimes even when I'm watching a YouTube video, I'll pause it and I'll be talking at them. Listening is hard, but I think listening is very important. It's tied in my mind heavily to humility. I think humility gets a bad rap. It's seen as kind of dogging on yourself, putting yourself down. But I think it's more accurate to say that it is an accurate reflection of, how you really are. A bodybuilder isn't humble by saying that they're not that strong. They'd be humble if they recognize that they're not the strongest, right? That they have room for improvement. They can recognize how much stronger they are than the average person, but they can't let themselves be satisfied, right, with their state if they're trying to be the best. Being humble is a prerequisite for growth. If I don't know that I have room for improvement, how am I going to improve? I think that's pretty easy, and I think most people can relate and understand that. But it's hard. It's not easy to be humble. It requires a lot of strength and vulnerability. And that doesn't come easy. Why listen at all? I thought of a little story to tell. We have a old farmer and a young scientist. They both are trying to do their best to improve agriculture. The young scientist has no experience in the field, literally, in agriculture. They've read all the books about the chemical compositions. They know how all the theories work, even how quantum entanglement deals with chlorophyll in the plants. How it all kind of comes together to create food. The old farmer doesn't really care about all of this, doesn't care about the formulas. He was taught by his father how to plant potatoes or whatever he's growing. And in the end, he's able to do it year after year. There might be some fluctuations, and maybe lately there's been a little bit of trouble, but he was taught this is how to do it, and he does it this way. Now, with our internal biases, I think we can all kind of side with one or the other. I would assume more traditional people would side with the old farmer, and more open-minded people would probably lean more towards the scientist. But they both have something to offer. The scientist is going to understand more readily how to, create new fertilizers and to create ways to prevent bugs, to improve the situation that's already there. Also to know things that might be coming along the line. The farmer has more intuitive knowledge. Being in the field, you see things, and even if you don't recognize them for what they are, your instincts will kick in. Nothing will beat practical experience, right? There's an old word for that, and that's wisdom, right? This kind of, I might not know a lot, but I have a lot of experience in this, and that means something as well. So it's important to remember that these two people, if we want to have the best system possible, they need to be in conversation with one another. Almost need to be fighting with one another, kind of fighting for ground. Well, this is how my father taught me versus this is what my professor taught me. They need to find out what's going on. Like, why are they disagreeing? Is it the theory that's wrong? Or is it this kind of tradition that's wrong? this, of course, carries out to all sorts of conversations, but this tends to be the one kind of major combat that we see constantly. Children with their parents, right? If you are a parent, you tend to be siding with the old farmer, versus if you're a child and you don't understand why your parent is doing the things that they're doing, it can be difficult. And so the key to this is listening, making sure that you aren't obsessed with getting heard, but you sit and listen and absorb everything you can from this conversation. Because in the end, right, it is important for the other person to hear you, but you can't control that. You can't control if they're going to listen to you or not. But you know what you can control? You can control your own reaction. You can say, you know what, no matter what, I'm going to listen. I'm going to sit here and really take it in and measure what I'm hearing. This looks something like if you're hearing a coworker give you feedback on how you did, it can be easy to get really defensive and fight back and say, well, no, this is what was wrong, this is what was wrong, this is what was wrong, or this is why. Stop trying to defend it. There is a time for that, but there's a time for listening as well, and just sitting back and saying, you know what, you're right, this is what you observed, and just take note, like, hey, this is what other people see when I'm doing this thing. Is there something that I can change to make that happen? Or is that something that's out of my control? Because if it's out of your control, then, what are you going to do? But if something that if it is something that's in your control, then, do something about it. I think it's pretty simple in itself. So whether you disagree vehemently with a political figure, a racist family member, your bully in school, right? In the end, though they might be wrong, right? They have something to say, and even though they might not listen to you, you should take the time to listen to them and understand why they think the things they think they think, right? How are you going to be able to prove them wrong if you don't know what they think? I think that's another way of putting it. But the goal is, right, if we want a good society, a good community, we have to listen to one another. Even the people we don't think are worth listening to have something to say. And I firmly believe that there is a grain of truth in every opinion, which is that's that person's opinion. And I think that's important to remember, that in the end, no matter what, whether it's right or wrong, that's their opinion. And they are a human being. You can try to convince them otherwise. And sometimes it's morally right to do so, I'd say, especially in the case of, your racist family member. But how are you going to change somebody's mind if they don't feel listened to? I think that's one of the greatest feelings in the world, is when somebody disagrees with you, but can express that they heard what you had to say. That's all I really wanted to go over. Thank you for listening. This is a shorter one this week, but I'll see you next Saturday.